Members of the Senate, if you represent any portion of Aiken, Allendale, Bamberg, Barnwell, Berkeley, Calhoun, Charleston, Chesterfield, Clarendon, Colleton, Dillon, Dorchester, Edgefield, Florence, Georgetown, Hampton, Horry, Lexington, Marion, Orangeburg, Saluda, Sumter, or Williamsburg counties, I would ask that you pay attention to what I'm about to share with you. Go ahead. I've got some pictures I want to share with you, members of the Senate. 3 years ago this week, South Carolina was gripped in the worst ice storm that this state had seen in several decades, and one of the worst ice storms that ever hit the southeastern United States. There's pictures that are being shown.
Excuse me, Senator from Aiken. Let me get you some order. Would the Senate please come to order? The Senator from Aiken has the floor with some very important information.
The pictures that are on these on the screen, these are pictures that were taken from Aiken, Orangeburg, and Dorchester counties, which, as all of you know, is a pretty wide stretch of the state, over 100 miles between the city of Aiken and the town of Summerville. There were 22 counties that were impacted substantially by the February 2014 ice storm. And in Aiken County, where I live, at my home, we were without power for 6 days at my house. And there were many residents of counties in this state who were without power for up to 10 days. In Aiken County alone, there was 1.48 million cubic yards of tree debris that was removed by the federal disaster recovery officials and their teams. There was 148,136 what the DOT calls hangers that were cut over the roads in Aiken County, and 1,690 what they call leaners, which were trees that had leaned into the DOT right-of-way that had to be removed, and that was in Aiken County alone. Keller Kassam, the president of SCE&G Retail Operations, was quoted after the storm and the recovery that took place over the next 10 days that the damage to the SCE&G infrastructure was as devastating to the utilities infrastructure as Hurricane Hugo was in 1989. The reason that I am standing before you today is the same reason that I stood before this body last year during the budget process and the year before. And that is that the state of South Carolina, in 2015, through the assistance of Senator Leatherman and the Finance Committee, we were able to reimburse the cities and the counties that were impacted by the 2014 ice storm with 25% of their out-of-pocket expenses after their federal reimbursement. That means that they still have not been reimbursed 75% of their out-of-pocket reimbursement. And the storm was 3 years ago this week. Now, last year, when we had when we considered the budget and we considered all the impact of the 2015 flood, the counties that were impacted by the 2015 flood were reimbursed 100%, 100 cents on the dollar, for their non-federal covered expenses associated with their recovery effort. This year, we're going to consider the 2016 hurricane. And as we should, I expect that we will reimburse all of those counties 100 cents on the dollar for the expenses that they've incurred from the 2016 hurricane that were not reimbursed to them by the federal government and the federal aid. But my point in rising today is I want the members of this body to recognize that the 2014 ice storm was just as devastating to the communities that it impacted as the 2015 flood, and the 2016 hurricane. the impact on the citizens of those communities is equally as devastating, and the impact to the taxpayers of the local governments in those communities is equally as devastating. Now, unfortunately, we've got some communities, like the senator from Marion County, that's been impacted by all three of those storms. Isn't that right, Senator? And there are others of you. Senator from Williamsburg, your county's been impacted by all three of them. And the senator from Florence, your community's been impacted by all three of them. But I wanted the body to know that it's been 3 years. The budget process starts in the Ways and Means Committee next week. The Ways and Means Committee is going to consider in the House side the budget. And I would encourage you that if you represent any of these counties that have been impacted by the 2014 ice storm, I encourage you to speak to your counterparts in the House, ask them to get the Ways and Means Committee to put $11.4 million. That's what I understand is needed. $11.4 million is the remaining 75 cents on the dollar that's owed or that we should reimburse to these counties and cities that have been impacted in this 22-county stretch. Senator from Marion, your community, your county, if we get this money, we'll get $377,000 back to Marion County from the 2014 ice storm. Senator from Williamsburg, $675,000 to Williamsburg County and the communities, town of Greeleyville, town of Hemingway, King Street, that were impacted. Senator from Sumter and Senator from Clarendon, I know y'all share Sumter County. Sumter County will get $461,000 out of this money. Senator from Berkeley and Senator from Dorchester. Berkeley County would get $722,000 out of this if we can get it in the budget. Dorchester County would get $573,000 if we can get it in the budget. And I've talked with Senator Leatherman about this, and he's expressed to me how important it is in this process for the House Ways and Means Committee to include it in their version of the budget. So I wanted to take the floor today and show you the pictures that speak volumes as to the impact that this storm had on these counties that stretched from Aiken to Charleston, all the way back up to the Dillon, Florence, and Marion County area of the PD. And if any of you want to see the numbers, come to my desk and I'll share them with you. But these pictures speak volumes. And as I said earlier, these are not just pictures taken in Aiken County. These pictures were taken from Aiken, Orangeburg, and Dorchester counties.
Senator from Florence, for what purpose do you rise?
Senator, yield for a question.
Would the senator from Aiken yield to a question?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Senator from Florence.
11 plus million that you mentioned, does that cover all 3 years?
Yes, sir. That's the remaining. That's the 2014 ice storm. It
does not cover the.
That's not the hurricane, and it's not the flood. We've already reimbursed on the flood. That was done last year in the budget, and the 11.4 million is what I understand is the remaining portion that we have not reimbursed to the counties and cities in the 2014 ice storm. 11.4 million.
Senator from Clarendon, for what purpose do you rise?
I want to see if the senator will yield for a quick question.
Would the senator from Aiken yield for a question?
I will.
Senator from Clarendon.
Did you have an amount for Clarendon County, please?
Clarendon County is $135,042. Be glad to share them with anybody. Thank you so much.
Senator from Lexington, for what purpose do you rise?
Unanimous consent request.
Please state your request.
The words of the senator from Aiken be printed in the journal.
Is there an objection to the senator from Lexington's unanimous consent request? Hearing none, so ordered. Senator from Berkeley, for what purpose do you rise?
I'd like to be recognized for the purposes of personal expression.